Secondly, New York just completed a wonderful analysis of their youth court system. They have about 80 youth courts in New York. The Center for Court Innovation, which is in New York City, studied their youth courts for a year and issued a report in March of 2010. I would think that that document should be reviewed by policy people within the Department of Education and within the juvenile justice system within Pennsylvania. And I would also comment that Judith Kay, who apparently was the chief appellate judge in New York, called the correctional systems and the correctional facilities in New York a school-to-prison pipeline. Those are her words. And she recommended that alternative models of justice, like youth courts and like enhanced civics classes, be developed to respond to them. June 1st, the president of the New York State Bar Association, Stephen Younger, announced a special committee on youth courts in the state of New York. I also would like to comment that I think the private sector would be extremely interested in working with government as this thing plays out. I know that my foundation, its very reason for existing, is to help vulnerable youth achieve better outcomes. I want to point out that youth courts, compared to a lot of other programs, are extremely affordable. And you not only deal with the juvenile justice problem of behavior that you're trying to correct, but at the same time, you're building the skills of the students who are running your youth court. So it's both an educational tool and a juvenile justice mechanism. And I want to respond to the truancy question that came up towards the end of the former panel's testimony. The statistic that sticks in my mind is that 27% of all youth courts across the nation process truancy cases. We process truancy cases in Chester. Truancy cases are not easy to process. The reasons kids don't come to school are very complex, but we do think that youth courts allow a forum for some of the facts to come out. I'm happy to respond to any issues that the committee might want further information on, and I certainly appreciate, again, the opportunity to speak today.
What do you mean, your recommendation, what do you mean by a Pennsylvania Association of Youth Courts to provide training? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I can. We did a little bit of research about a year and a half ago and found out that about 20, I believe the number is 20 states actually have a statute that governs youth courts within their state. Some provide funding streams. A youth court statute could provide training. It could provide coordination. And I think that Pennsylvania has no statute for youth courts. So whatever youth courts currently exist, I assume, have simply been the idea of somebody within the local judicial system that it was a good idea. I don't think you ought to just go out and create a youth court statute now. I think you should study the issue, review the New York materials, do your own research, and then contemplate bringing school-based youth courts and juvenile justice-based youth courts together. Because my belief, and I feel pretty strongly about this, is there's no reason that you can't teach students in high school to run a youth court and then use those same students to run a juvenile justice youth court. I would think that would be a very efficient use of resources. And that's what Arizona's doing.
And how specifically do you run your court? I mean, what decisions do they make? Do they, how binding are they? What, what's the nuts and bolts? And maybe the two young men could explain what they've done and their improvements that they've done in the, and fought for. And Jamar indicated that he worked hard to make changes in it, in the youth court. So I'd like to hear from the two young men what they think about youth court, and what are your decisions, and how do they abide by them? How the other young men and women, how do they respond to those decisions that you make, and how do you make those decisions?
Well, in the youth court, when we first started, it was just like a pilot program, you would say. I mean, we're just getting youth court on its feet and Chester High. So when we first started, it was mostly we would have a set of jurors, have a judge, defense attorney, prosecuting attorney, the whole process. The respondent would sit down. As the jury would ask the respondent questions, and then after the questions are done, they would go in and weigh in while the jury would deliberate. So when they come back, we read them their disposition, and I believe the youth court coordinator would mostly keep up with the disposition, make sure it's completed, make sure it's completed, make sure everything's done. Then they would come back. We would put them through a process where they would, sign off. They would complete the disposition, that they agreed to do whatever the youth court tells them to do, mostly. Anything like that?
What kind of a disposition? What are the types of dispositions that you come? You mean basically what you want them to do
to answer that, the youth court, we would have a set list of dispositions that we would like the respondent to complete. We have jury duty. They would participate as a juror for a set of minimum 6 hours. This year, we actually, before they would become a juror, they would go through training, online training like any other youth court member would do. We give them apologies. Either they would write an apology or or say a verbal apology. We have community service. We have recommendations, workshops. We would give them tutoring. So that's mainly a set list of dispositions that we would have them give, that we would give to them.